Tales of Veldrith, written and produced by Matthew Taylor. Episode 4, The Sentinel, Chapter 1, Reluctant Investigator. The smell of death clung to the air like a shroud. Vestinus stood in the narrow alley, his crimson skin a stark contrast to the grey stone walls around him. The early morning light filtered weakly through the buildings, casting long shadows across the cobblestones slick with blood. He had seen death in many forms, but this was no ordinary killing. The markings carved into the merchant's body were deliberate, precise, and laced with intent that felt older than the city of Jorvik itself. Kneeling beside the body, Vestinus traced one of the symbols lightly with a clawed fingertip, careful not to disturb the scene. The faint remnants of arcane energy made his skin prickle, a subtle warning of the power woven into the markings. Ragnar Arvidsson, captain of the City Watch, stood nearby, arms crossed over his broad chest, his expression grim.
Well?
Ragnar asked, breaking the silence.
What do those markings tell you?
They tell me that this wasn't a crime of passion.
Vestinus replied, his voice low and measured.
This was ritualistic. These symbols,
he gestured to the spiralling lines and jagged runes carved into the corpse,
are part of a summoning rite.
Ragnar frowned, his weathered face tightening.
Summoning? Of what?
Of something we don't want walking these streets,
Vestinus said. He rose to his full height, brushing the blood from his fingers on a cloth.
The markings are part of a death ritual. It's designed to tether the soul of the victim to something unnatural.
Ragnar grunted, his unease plain.
I've seen a lot in my time, vest in us, but I've never seen anything like this. Why here? Why now?
That's the question, isn't it?
Vestinus turned, scanning the alley for clues. His dark eyes lingered on a trail of blood leading toward a stack of crates. He walked over, his boots crunching on the frost-touched cobblestones, and found a symbol daubed in blood on the wall behind the crates. It matched the carvings on the body, a jagged spiral encircled by sharp lines.
This,
Vestinus said, gesturing to the symbol,
is a mark of the Heralds of Arorn, a death cult that hasn't been seen in centuries.
What happened when you dealt with them before?
Vestinus spoke, his voice heavy.
Long ago, in another life, they were attempting something similar, using rituals to blur the lines between life and death. They failed, but not before leaving a trail of devastation in their wake.
Ragnar cursed under his breath
And now they're back.
Or someone inspired by them,
Vestinus said.
But this ritual isn't complete. They'll need more than one death to achieve their goals. This is only the beginning.
The captain's hand moved to the hilt of his sword, his grip tightening.
Then we don't have time to waste. Where do we start?
Vestinus hesitated. He had spent decades trying to distance himself from the darkness of his past, to live quietly as a scholar and healer. But the sight of the body, the feel of the symbols, stirred something in him. A grim sense of duty he could not ignore.
We start with the markings,
Vestinus said.
I'll need access to my library. These symbols, they're old, but not all of them are familiar. If I can identify the language and its purpose, we'll have a better idea of what they're trying to summon.
Ragnar nodded.
And the body?
Have your men move it discreetly to the apothecary. I'll examine it further there.
The captain gave a curt order to his guards, who moved in to carefully wrap the body. As they worked, Ragnar turned back to Vestinus, lowering his voice.
If what you're saying is true, this city could be in more danger than anyone realizes.
It is,
Vestinus replied.
The Heralds of Arorn are not just murderers, they're harbingers. If we don't stop them, Jorvik will fall, and it won't be to an army or a plague. It will be to death itself.
Ragnar nodded grimly, his expression hardening.
Then let's get to work.
Later that morning, Vestinus returned to his modest home, a low wooden structure tucked away on the edge of the city. The front room doubled as an apothecary, its shelves lined with jars of herbs, vials of glowing liquids, and dusty tomes. He pulled one of the thicker books from a shelf, its leather cover worn and embossed with faded runes, and set it on the work table. As he worked, poring over symbols and cross-referencing texts, a soft knock came at the door. Vestinus looked up, frowning. Few dared to approach him uninvited, and Ragnar wasn't one for pleasantries.
Come in,
he called. The door creaked open and a young girl stepped inside. Her clothes were patched and muddy, her hair tangled, and her wide eyes darted nervously around the room before settling on Vestinus.
You're the red man, aren't you?
She asked, her voice trembling slightly.
The one who knows about magic?
Vestinus's brow furrowed.
Who are you?
Kaya,
She said, clutching the edge of her cloak tightly.
my sister. She's gone. Taken by men in masks.
Vestinus stood slowly, his sharp eyes narrowing.
Tell me everything.
Kaya's story tumbled out in broken fragments. A late-night ambush, robed figures dragging her sister into the shadows, and the faint, haunting glow of symbols painted on the walls. The mention of the symbols made Vestinus's blood run cold.
Do you know where they took her?
He asked. Kaya nodded hesitantly.
There's an old building near the docks, abandoned for years. I saw them go inside.
Vestinus glanced at the tome on his table, its pages still open to a diagram of the same symbol carved into the merchant's body. The pieces were falling into place, faster than he had expected.
Wait here.
He told Kaya, striding to the corner where his weapons were stored. He retrieved his blade, its dark steel catching the light, and strapped it to his side.
What are you going to do?
Kaya asked, her voice trembling. Vestinus looked back at her, his expression grim.
I'm going to find your sister, and if the heralds of Arawn are behind this, I'm going to stop them before it's too late.
Tales of Veldrith is brought to you by Metal and Magic, purveyors of Celtic and Viking-inspired casual jewellery. Visit metalandmagic.com. That's Metal and Magic with a CK.com. Use code Veldrith for free shipping in the US.